All right. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
It's Chris and John.
Right.
You introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm John.
Yeah.
Chris's father.
Yes, I'm John's daughter. And we are here at the Ocean Reef Resort and Marina, which is a very nice place. So if you want to sponsor us or anything, we're open. But we thought we'd update you on what we're doing and where we are, and more generally, how we make decisions about where we go, because a lot of us, me and Dad included, have done a lot of road trips, and it's a really different experience. There's a similarity in that in both cases, you have a lot of freedom. You might be making plans day to day, figuring out like where you want to go. But when you're on a boat, and specifically a sailboat with a, limited fuel capacity, limited speed, you have to make decisions in a different way. So, Dad, why don't you tell us where we are, or where we came from, and where we're going?
Yeah, sure.
Well, we're gonna look at the chart in a minute, but just could you give an overview
sure.
of like what we're doing here?
Yeah, well, we were in Bimini. That's where we entered the country, and we had been there for several days, and our object was to check in Bimini and then head east to the Berry Islands, and from the Berry Islands to Nassau, and then into the Exumas. So we'd generally be traveling in an southeasterly direction. Unfortunately, the wind was all coming out of the east. If it wasn't coming out of the east, it was a storm blowing out of the northeast or northwest, and that complicated everything, obviously. The other challenge was that it's like 72 nautical miles, right? 75 miles from Bimini to the Berry Islands, which would be the first place where we could actually find a good anchorage. And that meant that we cannot go that far in daylight. We have about 11 hours of daylight. So that meant we either had to navigate at night across waters that can be very dangerous. The guides all tell you to avoid night navigation. It's a sight navigation area. There are coral heads that aren't marked, and so you have to be watching all the time to ensure, obviously, that you don't run into anything that would both damage the environment and maybe sink your boat. So those were all considerations. So we were in Bimini. We were trying to get to the Berry Islands, which is supposed to be great for snorkeling. It's a very beautiful area. Because of the way the winds were blowing, we decided that we had a choice. We could either wait in Bimini for the winds to shift, which there's no obviously telling when that's going to happen, or we could sail on the east winds and go north to Grand Bahama Island.
I'm gonna flip the camera around now so we can you can see exactly what we're talking about here. There's a couple of the other charts and books we use, but here is a chart of basically the entire area we've been talking about.
Yeah, so you can see this is Bimini, and this is where we were trying to get to. So you can see it's almost due east of us. So what we did was we took advantage of that east wind and sailed up here so that would better position us for if we get more east winds, depending on how far east and how far north or south it is, we may be able to sail this direction. So obviously we're making a big detour to get to here. The other advantage of being up here near Freeport is that if the winds continue to be adverse, we could sail around the north end, which is west end of the Grand Bahama Island, and then head across the little Bahama Bank and head over to the Abacos, which is also very, very beautiful and offers a lot of other opportunities. It's a little more settled than the Berry Islands and Exuma, but it's something we intended to see. And then from there, we could go south and eventually get back down to the Exumas. The Exumas aren't shown on this particular chart. So that was basically, the overview of some of the challenges that we had.
Yeah, and I think one of the other factors was, if we were going to cross this great Bahama Bank here, there is an opportunity to stop on the Mackey Shoal. You can anchor here and overnight, and then make the trip in 2 days. But I think the issue we were running into with that was that we didn't have 2 days together that seemed favorable in the right way. Yeah. Whereas as in the wind is coming from a favorable direction or a not unfavorable direction and wasn't too strong, or some other factor. So
the other problem with anchoring on the Mackay Shoal is even in settled weather, it's not comfortable. There's no protection at all. You're basically dropping anchor in relatively shallow water. It's some of it is like 10 feet deep or whatever. So it's easy to anchor there. And it's a fairly secure anchorage, but it's going to be very rocky if there's any wind whatsoever. So with an east wind, if has any strength to it, you're going to be pretty miserable. And maybe you might run into some more than just discomfort. So anyway, that's what one of the other advantages of being up here is now we just have a 52 nautical mile trip from the Freeport area down to, so that is doable within daylight hours. We'll leave a little bit before sunrise and head that way. And it looks like right now, why don't you give an inform on where the weather forecast?
Yeah, so right now we've got some winds picking up tonight and tomorrow, so we're thinking of staying here for tomorrow. There's going to be some rain and some stronger winds we don't want to be out in, especially because that area where we are outside Freeport, that southern bank of Grand Bahama Island, doesn't offer any protection really from wind or from ocean swell, and you really can't anchor out there. So we are at a marina for the next couple days.
Yeah.
And then starting Monday, it starts to die down, but then the seas are still a little rough from that lingering from the wind. And so Tuesday looks like we're going to have an east wind, which will be kind of perpendicular to us in the route that we're taking. Right. And the seas are supposed to calm down. I basically right now, the level of my acclimation to the sea is that I can choose illness or vagueness
or drugs.
And the Dramamine works, but I do tend to feel a little removed from the situation and myself. I don't really enjoy that feeling. It makes me slightly sleepy or stupid, so I don't really enjoy that. But when with the winds dying down, that should be better for us.
Yeah, we can hope. We sailed most of the way from Bimini to we're not actually in Freeport. We're in
Lucaya.
Yeah, Lucaya, which is just a little bit east of Freeport. That's where most of the nicer marinas are. Freeport is actually more of a commercial port. But we sailed almost the entire way. But as we veered a little bit more east into this east wind, we ended up sailing right. The wind was coming just off the nose of the boat, just off the bow. So it was like a close haul. And the seas were the wind was stronger than was forecast, and the seas were higher than were forecast. So the combination made for a very, very uncomfortable sail.
Yeah.
We sailed very fast for a long time, but when the seas got really disrupted, the boat was hitting into the seas, and it was like almost stop, and it was just very uncomfortable. So we ended up motoring the last 2 hours of that trip, and we actually ended up entering a marina just after dark.
Yeah, it was, we had a little bit of an adventure. We realized that we weren't going to make it to any of either of the areas that we were kind of aiming for were out of our range if we wanted to get there anywhere close to daylight. We ended up not getting there at daylight at all. But I did find a marina that would be the closest sort of port for us to reach. And I attempted calling them as soon as I got cell service. You do lose it in between the islands on these larger crossings. But I called them before closing hours. I sent in a digital reservation online.
And we tried to reach them on the radio, channel 16, which is the clear channel for that kind of communication, 3 or 4 times. Again, starting around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, as soon as we were within radio range. And got no response. We
got there, and there were a couple lights at the marina, but nothing like no sort of navigation aid, no sort of guidance. And we decided we'd get in there, we'd tie up somewhere out of the way, and figure it out then. At worst, we would tie up and not get off the boat and then just leave, as soon as we could if we weren't able to get like an actual slip. Because you're not bothering anyone really, not using the facilities or anything. So we get in and there's no boats there. There is a giant barge taking up half of the canal, the entryway.
The relatively unlit.
Unlit,
channel,
barge. And they're fixed docks that were really no cleats on them. It was really difficult to get a hold on. But by this point it's about 6:30 or 7. It's after dark, and it's pretty unsafe to turn around, and there's nowhere to go. If you do, you can't just go out and drop anchor.
Yeah, and we're pretty exhausted.
We're pretty tired. I've been sick all day.
Yeah, and we started out about 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah, and also the night before we dragged anchor, so we'd been up in the middle of the night to switch. So we were pretty tired.
Yeah.
And me because I was throwing up, Dad because I was useless and he had to do everything. So we come in, and I am at this point I am driving, I am steering, so I'm not like a lump or anything. And so we tie up, and Dad for stability reaches for the electric box that you plug into.
Right.
And what happened?
Oh, I got shocked, almost knocked on my can. It was not static electricity. This was like 110 electric shock.
So we think this place is not open for business.
There was not a single.
There's
boat
nobody
there.
there.
Other than a working
there was
boat,
no dock master station. There was no office we could see.
And the entire marina was enclosed with a 10-foot chain link fence.
Yeah. So we thought, okay, well, there's no one here. We're not doing any harm.
And they're obviously doing construction. So,
right. Yeah. It's not like derelict or anything.
No.
It looks like it's under maintenance, right? So we decided to stay there. We eat dinner. We go to bed around, I don't know, 8 probably. And then in the middle of the night, this guy starts yelling from the opposite dock. I check my phone to see what time it is and realize that we've gotten a reservation confirmation that we have been charged for this reservation to the marina. We go upstairs on deck, and the man says that he's security and we're not allowed to be there. We need to leave.
He said we were trespassing.
We're trespassing, and if we don't leave, he's going to call the police.
Right. Without asking any questions about
No.
why we're here or anything.
Yeah. So I told him we couldn't leave because it was dark. And he told us that we could untie from the dock and anchor in the middle of the marina, where there's like barely enough room. Actually, we didn't have room to turn around when we did. I had to back up. I had to do like a 3-point boat turn
eventually,
to get out when we did get out. So there's not room to anchor
and
in this
not
marina.
Safe. Now no other boat could ever come into that channel because we'd be anchored right in the middle of the channel.
So I tell him that we have a reservation because it is there on my phone. And he looks confused and says he has to make a call. And I said, is it to the police? And he said, no, I have to make a call. So he went away and he came back and he said, it's okay.
But you have to leave early.
But you have to leave, as soon as you can. So we did. Anyway, this is already too long. But like, regardless, the next day, I go on to the reservations site to complain. And I get a note back from the marina that not only were they open, someone had been on the premises until 9 p.m. There was a dockmaster. We apparently had not attempted to contact them on the radio. We had made a reservation after hours. And by 9 p.m., no one had arrived. And we know we have, not that we need to prove it in court, but we have logs that state that we were definitely there. So I don't really know what was going on there.
Reservation, and when you make that would all be.
We have that, and we also have on our GPS plotter. We have
where we were when we. So
the whole thing was, they did refund the money, but it just seemed absurd to be charged for the privilege of being, threatened with the police in the middle of the night. Regardless,
so we won't be going back there.
We're not going back there. But we did, the next day was a pretty easy jaunt. We went down to, I found a marina that has a resort attached. So they've got condos and marina slips. And they've got a restaurant, and they've got a shuttle to the grocery store. They have activities. Mm-hmm. They have a pool. They have karaoke on Thursday nights. We availed ourselves of that, and so it's been really, really nice. But I think we're ready to go see some of the. I came out here, not to stay at a I don't know, middle class resort from the 50s. Really, nothing wrong with any of those things. It's just I could do that elsewhere. But so I think we're excited about going to the Berries because while the Abacos are beautiful, and I haven't been to either one, from what Dad says, the sort of going to the less developed areas, the more, the parts where, you're more in a nature film is a lot more appealing to me. Yeah. So we've re-provisioned. We have all of our charts and everything plotted, and we're good to go.
The weather forecast seems to be holding for a good departure on Tuesday morning. Yeah. So that's what we'll hope for.
Yeah, and we'll have to remake that video we made on the way over. We made a really good video about all of the instruments that we use in the cockpit, and I played it back, and all you could hear is wind. So we're doing some experimenting to build a baffle for a phone microphone. So we will get back to you on that. So if you got this far, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.